You're muted, but we just want to let you know we do have one CIL that will be joining a little late because she's teaching, and she's going to be supporting the writing presentation with Alex and Andrea. That's Shauna Johnson, but she is teaching her AP class right now, and then she's going to hop on when she's done.
Great. Okay. Thanks. So I will call to order the Weston Board of Education Curriculum Subcommittee meeting. It's 9:33 a.m. on May 7th. And just a couple of quick things, our virtual norms, keep your cameras on at all times, mute your microphone just so we don't get background noise, be present and engage, seek to understand, and keep the discussion and comments on topic. So we can move through the agenda. And I think that's the norms. Real quick, we have Lisa Luft and Chad Hepner joining us from the Board of Ed. And our first order of business is the approval of our meeting minutes. So let me just pull this up.
Okay, I got it pulled up, David. I'm getting good at this. Move that the curriculum committee approve the April meeting minutes.
Can I get a second? Chad, have you had a? All right, we may have lost Chad momentarily. Well, I will second that. Thank you,
Okay.
Lisa. You're like a professional now. All right. So at this point then, I will hand it over to you, Tina.
Excellent. You both are doing great. Navigating the tech. David, you got the norms down. It's all wonderful. So thank you for joining us for the May curriculum subcommittee meeting. We do have a lot to talk about in the hour time frame that we have today. I always start with some academic highlights and reminders at the opening before we do any formal presentations. There is a lot going on in the Weston Public Schools between April and May before we close out the school year in June. So just wanted to re-highlight some of the great work of our green teams in April. We celebrated Earth Day on April 24th, and I wanted to just give some shout outs to those advisors, teachers, and students who really celebrated Earth Day activities. At Hurlbut, we had a trash-free snack day. At the intermediate school, we had a guest speaker, and they distributed the Energy Detective Flip books, and they really focused on being a good citizen and taking care of the school and earth around them. I know Patty is here, so thank you for all that great work. It was a great little flip book online, and they did a great job integrating that into the science curriculum as well. At the middle school, there was a flower bed flower bed cleanup and school-wide cleanup. And then at the high school, there was a variety of activities that they celebrated throughout the week of Earth Day is only one day, but they celebrated different activities throughout the week. They had a green team was hosting a swap shop. They had the Eco Fest, which was on this past weekend on May 4th at La Chotte Farm. That was really exciting. They also had some advisory lessons around recycling and waste management and activism around the environment. And also they had an Earth Day rally before school with music and posters to encourage the student body to think about environmental problems and solutions. So thank you to all the teachers and the green team who did some really great activities to honor Earth Day. Coming up in the month of May, we've got a lot of also great activities happening to celebrate some of the themes in May. I'm going to briefly pull up the Art Jam presentation. Kate O'Keefe has a class right now. She was not able to join. She's our curriculum and instruction leader for art in the district. But before I do that, just want to give some quick reminders about some themes that are happening in the month of May. And so I encourage everyone to always read, keep up on that week ahead that the principals spend a lot of time putting together around what is going to be happening at the school-based level. And so we have May is Jewish American Heritage Month. May 21st is World Cultural Diversity Day for dialogue and discussion. And May is also Mental Health Awareness Month. So each individual school is coordinating their own type of ways that they're honoring those months and those days. And so they will be, more information is always coming out in the week ahead that the principals put together. Also, what really want to highlight this week in the month of May is Teacher Appreciation and Staff Appreciation Week. So there's a lot of activities that are hosted by our PTOs to celebrate and honor all of the great work and support that our teachers and staff give our students. And really great, a lot of great themes that our PTOs are been put together to help honor this week as well. So real quick, I don't want to allow the time to go by. Just want to remind everyone, those that are watching, and also because this is being recorded and a lot of people sometimes watch it later, Art Jam is coming up. You can see my screen, right? Yes, okay. Art Jam is coming up on Thursday, May 15th. This is a really great way to honor and celebrate the arts in Weston. It's throughout all 4 schools at different times. And we really celebrate all the artists and the musicians even in Weston Public Schools. And so we want to make sure that people they mark this on their calendar, May 15th at different times. Make sure you have that on your calendars. All right, any questions on that? Those are some highlights from April and from May. But more to come. We're gonna, as you know, in June, just a quick shout out for our June meeting, because our June meeting is our academic year in review. It is a 2-hour meeting. It is face-to-face. It's in the middle school. That is where every department will be able to really provide artifacts and highlight all the great work across the district throughout the year. And so there will be artwork from the Art Jam event actually in front of us face-to-face during that meeting. And so a lot of these activities that I spoke about today and the things that we're honoring in the month of May will actually have some more time to dive a little deeper and actually see some artifacts from those events and those themes when we reconvene in June. And that is a 2-hour meeting. Again, that is June 3rd. Yes, I was right. June 3rd, a Tuesday from 3 to 5, and it's at Weston Middle School in the library. No questions. David, Lisa, you're good? Okay, Chad?
I'm helping Chad get reconnected. He's having technical problems, and I know he probably wants to join right before you start this topic.
Writing, yes. So I'll just do a quick intro. We wanted to ensure that we had some, Lisa, were you going to say something?
Chad just texted and he just said to send him the link. If we can just, sometimes you can invite.
Yep.
I think we're fine, Tina.
Okay.
You can continue on. I'm messaging him. He's just confused, I think, by he's being prompted as a panelist, which is the way it starts out, and then he needs to be promoted.
Yes.
So if you want to keep going, or if June is on, but I'll work with Chad.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's been promoted.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, great.
I'm in. Sorry.
Good timing, Chad. All good.
Chad, we just adopted a new AI policy. Sorry, you missed it.
Oh, I
Sounds-
didn't even mention
sounds
that
good.
one. Oh,
Sounds
you're
good.
right.
Good.
Wait,
It's-
you're right. Hold on. No, you're absolutely right. I missed one. You're right. I'm so sorry. I missed 2 on my bullets. This is why we have agendas. Okay, so just 2 quick updates as well. You should have already seen notifications in the week ahead from principals. Our school climate surveys, the window is open, and in the week ahead, the principals will be providing the links directly. You should have already seen parents, families. We're doing it with students and staff as well. The direct links to participate in our spring school climate surveys are live. They will be open, so you can participate all throughout the month of May. We did that intentionally to gather as much data as possible and give people enough time to participate. So that is through our Panorama platform, but you will get explicit details if you're a community and family member through the week ahead, and those direct links will have already been provided. So please also take a little bit of time to complete the surveys. They take about 10 minutes to complete, so not too much of your time, but we do ask that you carve out a little bit to think about the questions and really give us a good amount of feedback to help us move forward around our school climate and district goals. And then the other component, which I thank you for reminding me, David, Weston is very fortunate that we, when AI kind of became at the forefront of education, we gathered a group of constituents together, administrators, teachers, IT representatives from our district, and we created an AI advisory committee. This committee convened to complete a couple of tasks. The first one, which was around policy. Weston Public Schools does have an AI policy for generative AI and the components of making decisions around AI tools. That has been adopted this past school year. And the next part of our work of that committee was to create a vision and a mission and some guiding principles around practice, not only for educators, but also for students. And that those practices and principles are grounded and aligned to that AI policy. The committee is at the point where we've written a draft version of that vision and guiding principles, and we are going to be using some of the time during our early dismissal day in May to ask for the whole district, all of the teachers, to give us some feedback on what this committee has designed. So we don't have anything explicit to present to you today, but we wanted to let you know that it's in the works. A lot of this work takes some time, especially when we're looking to gather feedback from a lot of different stakeholders and groups. So that's at the forefront as well of our work. Really excited about that. I think Weston is one of the few districts that already has a policy that's been adopted and is working in the right direction.
Tina, all right, now that we've covered that section of the agenda, I did have a question related to the Jewish American Heritage Month.
Yes, sir.
And just more specifically, can you tell me at each school what the initiative is?
I can't yet because some of which is currently being designed. So each school is going to celebrate and honor that month differently. And that's why each principal will be able to provide those details in their week ahead.
Okay.
Okay. All right, I'm going to shift now to the one and only presentation on our agenda today. We have about 30 minutes to complete a conversation around. I know this is much more than 30 minutes, but we wanted to make sure that from our a few meetings ago, there was a conversation about writing and the development of writing in our district and our curriculum and how do we support writing throughout the grades. And so our 3 curriculum and instruction leaders that support K-12 literacy, which includes writing, came together to come up with a really concise version, because, right, we could talk for hours on any one content area when it comes to curriculum design and implementation, really trying to highlight some of what makes Weston's curriculum around writing unique and special. And so Andrea Noble from Hess, she's our curriculum and instruction leader supporting literacy and social studies, is here. Alex Bluestein is here. She's our curriculum and instruction leader at WIS, supporting both literacy and social studies. And then Amy Holmes is our 612 ELA CIL for Weston. However, she's also the advisor for mock trial, which you approved, the board approved last month. And our mock trial team is currently at the national championship and traveling to Phoenix, Arizona. So while she helps to put the presentation together, she's not here able to actually deliver it. But Shauna Johnson and Amy work really close together around writing, because writing is not just an isolated skill, especially when you get to the secondary level. It's an integrated skill, and it's across all content areas. Well, in all grade levels, but especially when you get to the high school level. So Shauna Johnson has been working very closely with Amy Holmes, and she will be joining. If she's not already here, I don't see her on my bubbles, on my Google Meet or Zoom bubbles here.
I'm here.
Yeah, oh, hi, Shauna. She's there. I see you. She's going to join in and help present the writing curriculum for the district today. So welcome, the 3 of you. Thank you all for putting this together. All right, so I will navigate and I will pass it over to the 3 of you.
Hi, I'm going to start us off, And as Tina just said, we work as a CIL team for the humanities very closely, collaboratively, and we had some really great conversations about what our writing program looks like K-12. And so Tina, if you would navigate to the next slide. We wanted to start with just articulating what we value in Weston. And I'm going to read this for just the benefit of anyone who maybe can't see the slide. Our mission is to develop confident, skilled, and purposeful writers from kindergarten through 12th grade, rooted in the Connecticut core standards for English language arts and enriched by the values of the Weston Public Schools community. We believe writing is a vital tool for thinking, learning, and communicating. Through intentional instruction, regular and meaningful feedback, as well as diverse writing opportunities, we empower students to craft clear, compelling, and authentic writing pieces that reflect their understanding, voice, and purpose. Now, the most important thing I can underscore about this statement is that this has always been what we value in Weston. This is my, I believe, 16th or 17th year here, and what the words that you see on this slide have never wavered. When we explore and vet and implement new core resources, we choose them intentionally to ensure that we are able to continue to teach and support writing in all of these ways that we value, that are in alignment with what our priorities are. So next slide. So this is just, how do we accomplish this? So this is sort of speaking to how we implement and make sure that our writing curriculum is robust. So these are the things that are sort of non-negotiables in our writing classrooms, that students have choice and voice. There is explicit teaching of writing every day. There is time for writing. We don't get better at anything unless we spend time doing it. Process writing. So the idea that every writer goes through some version of writing process is important, and it's explicitly taught. And a lot of time for students working through the different elements of that process is critical. Knowledge building. This is rooted in a lot of research about literacy acquisition, that all of reading and writing must be within a knowledge building curriculum. And so what you're going to see as examples in a few slides and at the annual instructional update is really going to highlight how our students are building knowledge in a broad range of topics through exploring them as readers and as writers. Ongoing feedback. So small group instruction and feedback does not only happen in reading classrooms, it happens in writing, it happens in a variety of ways. It may happen in person, it may happen digitally. Teachers work very close with students on what the criteria are for strong pieces of writing and provide feedback that students can enact immediately. And response to reading and response to text writing. This is another way for students to build their understanding of a text, is through writing about it, through supporting their thinking with text evidence in an ongoing way. And the Portrait of a Graduate, which, as you know, is sort of our anchor in high school for what we know that we want every student, every writer in our classrooms to know and be able to do and to be as a citizen of the world by the time they leave the Weston Public Schools. And so just a few examples of this across grade levels. In second grade, students write opinion pieces, they research community jobs, and then form and support opinions about the importance of a specific community job. In third grade, right now, students are advocating for endangered marine animals. They've spent weeks researching an endangered marine animal, and they're getting ready to write argument essays about some part of that animal and why we must save it, how we must save it, or one way that we all must work together to help the broad endangerment, within the marine animal world. Fifth graders right now are writing argument essays about civil rights leaders and the civil rights movement, and what their greatest accomplishments were and their legacies that we still have are bound to honor today. Shauna, would you want to jump in about some of the middle school and high school examples?
Yeah, within the slideshow, you're going to see different examples of students and the text that they're reading, different ways that they're analyzing characters, their development and their progression from 5th to 6th grade, and then again from 8th to 9th grade, looking at complexity and analysis of and finding textual evidence and writing and structure. And I can go into more depth later on.
Yes, and I know in 6th grade also, they just recently had an author visit. Students are going to be writing a letter to the author. In grade 9, they write an analytic essay on the book Night to bear compassionate witness to those experiences of the author. So those are just some examples of the broad ways in which we ensure that students are writing from a point of informed choice, voice, and passion.
All right, so now I am up with different kinds of writing that we do in our district. I think it's important to note that a lot of districts that have adopted different K-3 curriculum programs do not have the ability right now with those curriculums to be able to ensure that students are writing narrative, opinion, and argument pieces. They do a lot of text analysis, but not a lot of information, opinion, narrative, and argumentative writing that is bound with research. So that was something that was really important and key with us when we were choosing a curriculum that we were going to be implementing. Grade level standards are intentionally built for that vertical alignment. So you will see that our students K through 12 have experience in doing all of these forms of writing. We also make sure that we're explicitly teaching grammar and vocabulary and craft as well as structure. In foundations in K3, we're explicitly teaching spelling, sentence writing, and word work. And those aspects are things of where we are holding kids accountable for the application of those skills. There is a lot of research that is really talking about the fact that when students are drafting their pieces of writing, it is critical not to get hung up on mechanics and grammar and spelling, because it really kind of gets in the way of that idea generating and that craft and author's voice. Opinion pieces of writing merge with argumentative writing, as students have to use the research that they've done in order to argue or debate about the topic. Students learn what debatable topics are, and then the text analysis is when students write an opinion about a piece of text, often called a literary essay or analytical writing. So I just wanted to explain that a little because it says text analysis grades 3 through 12. We do aspects of that as well, but in our grade levels K2, it really is considered more opinion, argument type of writing. So I just thought that that was important for us to clarify. Can you go on to the next slide, please? Beyond the standards, we're also making sure that we are seeking to investigate and incorporate opportunities for interdisciplinary knowledge building. Everything that we're learning about in social studies, as well as science and social emotional learning, are all integrated into student voice and choice and the writing that they are wanting to be able to do. We incorporate a lot of opportunities for students to work collaboratively. We know that published authors often have peers that they work with and get feedback from in order to really perfect what they want to say based on who their audience is. They also are developing presentation skills. These skills are critical for our students to be able to become more and more confident and capable of feeling comfortable with presenting to a variety of audiences. And we also allow every student to recognize their power in communicating their interests, opinions, and passions as a writer. This is the opportunity for students to really be able to express themselves in a way in which they're choosing to be able to share who they are and their experiences that they've had. You go to the next slide. So what we're going to do is we're going to take you through a progression of writing that's going to go K-12. I'm going to talk a bit about K-2 writing right now. I don't know if you can really see the writing very well, but what you're seeing are drafts of student writing. And it's kind of critical for you to see that our students writing, like this kindergarten model here, the child is using punctuation at the end of their sentences, but they're not using uppercase letters. But we're really not harping on that in this draft version of it because their voice is really most important. You can hear the voice. It says, "This is a snake. It is poisonous. Pythons live in the understory. They also live on the floor of the rainforest. Snakes eat bugs. That means that they are predators." So you can really see that a lot of the research that they've done is coming out in their explanation of them being able to put together a piece of writing about pythons. In first grade, you're going to see a sequence of writing where students are investigating what they're doing with plants and not only studying plants, but deciding what part of the plant they feel is most important. So you'll see a more sophisticated sentence structure happening in the first grade writing. You see greater use of capitalization and punctuation appropriately, as well as that continuation development of spelling and craft. So that one says, do you like to make jack-o'-lanterns? I love them too. In my opinion, the roots are the most important part of a pumpkin. One reason the roots are important is because they collect all of the water and nutrients. Another reason is because they hold the plant in the ground. If the pumpkin did not stay in the ground, they would not get the water and nutrients for the plant to survive. So you're really sort of seeing that progression from what they're capable of doing in kindergarten to where they are in first grade. And then when you get to second grade, so this is that opinion piece that is grounded in research. So this child was working on builders and they feel that builders are most important. So their introduction goes like this. Did you know you will be an expert after reading this book? Builders build buildings. Want to know a joke? What is a builder's favorite thing to do at a dance party? And then upside down, it says, raise the floor. So that's a little answer for it. And it says, flip to see the answer. In this book, you will learn about how they help the community, what they wear and use, their responsibilities, and if they need any special training or personality traits. So not only do you see that the structure foundation in kindergarten is built to first grade as well as second grade, you also see that in first grade, the writers are trying to grab their readers' attention in their introduction, and then that more sophisticated introduction and ending to that paragraph in second grade. Next slide, please.
Andrea, I'm going to pause you there for just a second because I want
Sure.
to ask you, and maybe just make sure we highlight for the audience, how and when do teachers, explicitly support students on letter structure, like writing the letters and putting those letters together into words? Are there other resources that we use? Because
that's
you can
where-
see how the students, even writing, becomes stronger and more sophisticated, not just what they're writing, but how they're writing throughout those 3 years. I can see capitalization changes. I can see letters are, even being written closer together. Quotation marks, punctuation. So could you talk a little bit about some of the resources we have
Sure.
throughout K2 and maybe even pre-K, because we're very unique that we even support a lot of our pre-K curriculum with some of those resources to ensure that those students that are here with us before they come to kindergarten, they also have a really strong foundation moving into kindergarten.
Sure. So in kindergarten, in pre-K and kindergarten, we utilize Heggerty, which is a phonological awareness curriculum that really allows the kids to start playing with language and manipulating the language. But there's a lot of research that says that that work also enables kids to be able to apply those sounds when they are writing. So that's really where we start with 3-year-olds, quite honestly, teaching them how to hear the sounds in spoken language and be able to build that sequentially. When you end up putting letters with those sounds, Then you're going into phonics instruction. So that's the transition from phonological, where you're just playing orally, to phonics, where you're now adding letters and sounds. And we have 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week of phonics instruction within our classrooms, but that's also encoding, decoding, and it's the ability for us to not only make sure that they can sound out words, but it's also where we do a lot of work with sentence structure, starting a sentence with an uppercase letter, putting spaces between our words, saying the sounds and getting the sounds down, utilizing our high frequency words accurately, and then ending their sentence with some form of punctuation. So in those aspects of things, that's where we hold kids accountable, because that's really where you want to work on those mechanics, because that is a perfect time to do it. And it has nothing to do with the thought process that you want to go through when you're idea generating and you want to go through process writing. So we are looking for that growth and maturation across writing throughout the year, and those applications of those skills becoming increasingly more evident in their process pieces of writing. But we don't, unless it's a piece of published writing that's at the end, we're not holding the kids accountable for every piece of writing must have that uppercase letter. That spelling has to be perfect, and that every sentence
Right.
ends with a form of punctuation.
Yeah,
So
no,
that's
thank
how
you
we
for that.
kind of balance, the
Yeah.
writing.
And we all know writing is an iterative process. So these are just some snapshots of how these students progress. I just wanted to pause you for a moment because our board has really supported us around a variety of resources to support our literacy program. It's not just American Reading Company. I wanted to show you the result and make sure we pause here for a moment, because things like Heggerty that you're talking about in the early grades are critical to enhance our core resource, which is American Reading Company, and see how the reading and the writing link together, and how our other resources for intervention or for all students support this development over time. So thank you for calling that out, because sometimes it's hard as a board member or community member, they support these resources, but then sometimes maybe we don't highlight the results of bringing in those resources enough. And so I encourage everyone to, really take some time in June too, where we'll have some more artifacts to talk about student work and student work samples. So great job. Thank you for that.
I just want to add on one final thing. The American Reading Company does a phenomenal job of teaching our students about topics in reading that then links beautifully into the type of writing that they're going to be doing. So it really is a very symbiotic process where the things that they're reading about and learning about in reading are also topics that they're getting to explore when they're writing. And that really is happening during our writing time within our ARC framework.
Thank you. I'm going to move on.
Okay, so here is a progression of writing in grades 3-5. These are all informational pieces of writing. In third grade, students studied weather and climate, and this section of text, the student is teaching about why scientists study tornadoes. In fourth grade, the unit is on animal adaptations, and this section, I'm not going to read the whole thing because these get longer and longer. As you can see, the students are writing. This particular section is about the life cycle of dolphins. And in fifth grade, they study ecosystems. And this particular section is teaching you about the ecosystem of the ocean and who the consumers are in the ocean. They have a whole section on consumers and producers. And so the big thing I wanted to highlight here is that students are in these units, they're researching between 5 and 7 research questions on a topic. They engage in the writing process to communicate what they've learned. They are taught about topics, subtopics, text features, elaborating with details, examples, and comparisons. And this also illustrates the ways in which the standards grow in their expectations. So just from an organization and elaboration standpoint, in grade 3, students are expected to group related information together into paragraphs and elaborate with facts and details. In fourth grade, they now want kids to group information into paragraphs and sections So each section, as you can see, may have multiple paragraphs that answer that research question in different ways. They are expected to incorporate a broader variety of elaboration and evidence, and they start working with writing within text structures, so cause and effect or chronological, etc. In 5th grade, you can see there is even more information that is included, a broader range of evidence, text citations where appropriate. And now students are expected to group their information logically. So they need to consider who will be learning about this, who will be reading their piece, and what is the most logical way to organize my information within a section and across the entire piece of writing. And there's, as you can see, more use of text features that students are expected to do. And every piece of writing across the way, whether it's handwritten or typed, as you can see, we sort of shift more into typewriting in the upper grades. No matter what, there are opportunities that are provided for feedback, for teaching. Every piece of writing is a formative assessment opportunity for teachers. And so, we really ensure that as they're transitioning up into the middle school and the high school, we are really doing as robust a job as possible in teaching those standards to depth and in some cases enhancing them.
Alex, would you also just quickly briefly talk about how our library media specialists support some of these writing pieces as well? Because I'm sure people are noticing that how sophisticated some of these graphics become. The research now starts to get a little more intense, and by 5th grade, I mean, it's quite amazing, our 5th graders, what they're producing. Did you want to just mention anything about, how the teachers partner with our library media specialists to enhance the writing project?
Absolutely. So our library media specialist, as you know, is phenomenal. I'll just highlight 2 of the ways that she supports this. One is in terms of presentation. So students are learning different ways of presenting their information in 3rd grade. And I think, for many years in 3rd grade, they sort of learn how to use slides and input pictures and images. And then as they get older, I believe she now teaches them about using Canva and all sorts of different presentation opportunities. The other big thing we rely on Shelley for is teaching students about the research process and valid and reliable resources to use. So we can't keep kids from Googling information in the real world, right? We can hold the reins on that in school, but in life, they need to learn how to determine what a valid and reliable source is out in the broad world. And so she really does teach them how to use databases, how to evaluate the websites that students are getting their information from. So those are 2 she does a lot of work with our teachers, but just to highlight those 2 really important components.
Perfect, thank you. We're going to transition to secondary. Shauna?
Hi, good morning. So the secondary work that you're going to see is really looking at and highlighting the critical transition years, so our 6th grade and our 9th grade. So in both of these grades, students completed similar assignments that were literary analysis of a core text. And you can see the growth in analytical thinking, textual evidence, and craft as they are developing and growing over time. These are highlighted years because they are so monumental in a student's academic journey, and it's really like foundational for us. The 6th grade is that bridge from elementary to middle school, and then our 9th grade is that bridge from middle school into high school, and the deeper critical thinking and more sophisticated writing. So in the 6-8 progression, the focus areas that are highlighted there are developing clear claims and thesis statements, structuring paragraphs with topic sentences and evidence, and introducing transition and basic citations. And you'll notice also that now we have transitioned from writing to typing, because it's a really important skill that the kids learn how to use the computer and all of their resources effectively and efficiently, and can help support them. One of the examples for 6th grade, which is Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. So this is a development of theme and interpretation. So our 5th grade expectation is to identify a theme and summarize a text. And in 6th grade, it's to determine a theme and explain how it is conveyed through the characters and events. So it's that growth and development. And in this example, the student identified the theme. One must fight discrimination and not allow others to oppress. And it connects to the specific events and character actions involving two of the characters. There is use of textual evidence within this. There is use of character analysis. So in that example, the students explores how the characters respond and act to racism and discrimination, and showing growth and connection in character responses in the broader themes over time. We have other examples in that middle school one where it was talking about the character analysis and the writing and development. But as we go into the high school, so our students' writing demonstrates key transitions and moving them beyond just mostly summary and interpretation into citing stronger textual evidence and building on argument and theme. And this is where they're continuing to grow and providing clarity and structure and precision, which is really important as we're writing, and the overall progression in critical thinking and analytical skills. So in the 9-10 examples, we're expanding complexities and analysis. So the focus area is writing with more sophisticated voice and varied sentence structure, embedding quotations fluidly and using MLA formatting, moving from a formulaic type of paragraph structure, which is really helpful for kids in middle school and for kids who may struggle, but moving into things that are flexible and nuanced and more polished as you would expect it to be as they get older, and analyzing an author's choice in literary devices. So there's an example here from A Raisin in the Sun, and there is a progression and a development of theme and interpretation. And from 6th and 8th and 9th grade, the Common Core standards allow for that growth and development. And then the curriculum follows that, as do the teacher's instruction. So in 9th grade, they're analyzing how complex characters can develop over a course of a text and how they advance the plot and the theme. And in this student example, the student identifies a complex, nuanced theme, how pride and masculinity interact, causing both unity and division. And it exceeds the levels, and which typically focus on identifying basic theme. And this essay in particular traces Walter's emotional, moral, and psychological development, showing how his actions affect both his family and the relationship. There's also a progression of textual evidence and of writing structure and of language. So how language is used to precisely convey messages. Sophisticated vocabulary, such as generational wealth, naive child, emotional and psychological development, and varied syntax is really important. And then as we get to 11th and 12th grade, we are focusing on developing independent and original arguments, synthesizing multiple sources in a single coherent analysis, demonstrating an academic voice, and producing professional college-level research writing. And that is something that Amy and I have also been working on. We are collaborating a lot about writing, because not only do they write in ELA, but they also write in history. And so we want to make sure that we are aligned so that the students also see that alignment and they're not working in silos, because that's how we can really produce such powerful writers, is that when they know that it is a skill that transfers from different content areas. And we're doing a lot of work also with like annotations. So how you annotate in ELA and how you annotate in social studies, if there's a commonality there, so that we can work. We're also looking at and having conversations about how our content can actually align as well, and what texts work better in different grade levels, so that if they're reading it in ELA, that they're getting the historical and social context in history classes at the same time, so it has a deeper impact and deeper meaning.
Okay. So as we look, this exercise as a collaborative team was really important. And as you know, every year as we prepare for the annual instructional update, we have the opportunity to think about what comes next. And so we are continuing to look for cross-curricular writing expectations, ensuring that that every teacher, as they get older from 5th grade on, teachers aren't teaching every subject. So what are those writing expectations when students are writing about a topic, when they're writing in response to a text? We have done some collaboration on standards-based writing progressions. As you know, this is really important in our building's transition years to ensure that where students leave at the end of a building is picked up and carried on in the next. We have begun and need to expand on how we are sharing actual student writing examples across grade level and building transitions. So we currently have a process for communicating and sharing that writing from 5th to 6th grade. We want to continue to look for that across the buildings and other grade levels as well. And then Tier 1 strategies. So these are the strategies that teachers have in their toolbox to ensure that they are meeting the needs of all of the writers in their room. And so as we are continuing to develop and enhance our MTSS process, these are strategies that we want to make sure that we have to coach, to provide in our instructional coaching of classroom teachers in their teaching of writing. And then enrichment opportunities. These are all the opportunities that we provide students to be writers in the real world for authentic audiences. So in writing contests, literary magazines, school newspapers, and even, submitting pieces of writing out into the world to present their writing to authentic audiences. These are, I would say, I feel like we did a little bit more of this before COVID, and the couple of years after COVID, we sort of, for obvious reasons, backed off. And I think it's time that we sort of really explore what those opportunities are.
Thank
And
you
that's-
all. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Shauna. Thanks, Andrea. I love the idea and the conversation about as number one, that you showed some of that progression of writing across all grade levels. And if any of you had an opportunity to go to the Portrait of the Graduate, it was really great to see how some of our seniors really identified specific pieces of writing that meant something to them and why. And we hope that we're able to celebrate some of those student artifacts when we come to our June meeting as well. And I just want to highlight too, I know we didn't mention it in that enrichment opportunities, and these three, our 4 CILs probably underplayed some of the great work that they do because around interdisciplinary work. But it reminded me of the AP psychology class that we presented in a previous Board of Ed subcommittee meeting that Shauna worked with Alex on, where her AP Psych students actually wrote books and came down to the 5th grade and read the books to the students, and trying to find other ways to show value around why it is important to be a good writer, a good communicator for at all levels, and how to share that to Alex's point. How do we create opportunities to share and show students the value of what they do in the class is bigger than those four walls that they're in, and how do we get create opportunities for them to share it with younger students and with each other and the greater and the community at large. We have about 10 minutes. Do we want to open it for questions? I'll stop sharing.
I mean, I have a first quick question. The academic part of the writing, combination of my eyes and probably the detail of writing. Obviously, once they get to middle school, I can no longer read what they wrote, but certainly I, font-wise on the screen. But I certainly can relate to my 4th graders' writings, and it is a really interesting and fun progression as a parent to see that. But what I'm more interested in knowing is, at what point do we teach our students, I don't know how to say it other than like maybe more like real world writing, business writing, letter to the editor, a business letter, a letter to a company, maybe praising or complaining about a product. Like, when do we teach those types of writing skills?
Ladies?
I mean,
Anyone wanna
that's
jump in?
that's an interesting, I love the question. The letter writing that we have historically, I'll just start here at WIS, that we have historically done is usually in our opinion argument writing. where students write a letter to, it could be Patty Falber, it could be someone in the community to argue for something. So in the past, right, they have done so about healthy school lunches, about whether or not we should be serving chocolate milk in the cafeteria. And they do teach kids the format of a letter in that way. Our current program, I mean, as you know, this is our first year implementing, and I feel like, you know, the argument research unit is underway right now. And so that question is very timely. I feel like we could possibly implement that as an extension at the end of the unit this year. So thank you for asking that. That is sort of where we've done that in the past.
Yeah, I'll
And
just
I can
quickly
talk
jump in.
I can talk a little K2. A lot of the letter writing comes through around Mother's Day, Father's Day, writing letters to people related to that. Our kindergarten students also wrote letters to the second grade classes demonstrating why they needed to be contributing to their paper bag challenge in order to provide food for the Weston Food Pantry. So we try to link that in more real life types of ways, but tying it to social studies predominantly right now down at Hurlbut.
And from, you know, this is my first year, and I was so impressed with the emails that I would get from my ninth graders. So something's happening at the middle school where they're learning how to effectively and efficiently communicate with adults via email. So we can follow up and find specific examples to your question, David. But I know that the emails that I get from the kids are wonderful and very professional. And I was stunned that a ninth grader was sending them to me. So they're doing something right at the middle school. So we can find out more particulars for you.
Yeah,
Tina,
yeah.
Tina, do they offer this in your financial literacy class, your new class that is being offered? I don't know the exact curriculum.
Yeah, we presented the financial literacy, the personal finance class last subcommittee meeting. I can't remember if there was a topic in that list that was specific about like resume writing or letter writing. I know that maybe Megan wants to jump in around what the counseling office does to support some of that work, because I think as Shauna said, it comes through authentic experiences and support from adults, not maybe necessarily what you would get through a business class, which you know, we don't have high school business offerings, if that's what you're asking, David, specifically.
Yeah, I think that just for my purposes, there's
Yeah.
two things. And yes, I read my now fourth graders, I think it was last year, he lobbied for something better in the cafeteria, right? So, but the interesting thing is that is a fun thing for him to write, right? He enjoyed it. We talked about it at the dinner table. I said you really need to follow up with Miss Falber, make sure you hold her accountable to those changes, right? But I am sure he went back to what a typical third or fourth grader does, right? So I kind of, the bigger ask here, which is not something we're going to accomplish today, it's just ways that Weston can set itself apart from some of the other districts and really prepare our students for graduation. I feel like we really need to do something. I'm glad to hear, Shauna, that they're coming into ninth grade with some level of writing. It would be really interesting. I would love to know where they're picking that up from. Are they picking it up on their own? Are they picking up in school? Or a nod to Chad, is Chat GPT writing it for them?
Oh no, ChatGPT is definitely not writing these letters. And I mean, it is like Miss Johnson, comma, enter. Like it is a
Right.
very professional, like this is the kind of email that you need to send a person.
Yeah.
So they're definitely learning it somewhere. And I just don't have the experience or the knowledge right now because it's my first year here.
And just to finalize the question with Lisa, the personal finance curriculum, which is a mandated graduation requirement, has a unit of study that's to search and apply for a job, create a cover letter, a resume, and participate in like a interview simulation.
Yeah, I would love to see if we can weave into curriculum someplace in the high school level a section on business writing, op-ed writing, letter to the editor, letter to a company, because these are the types of skills that I have concerns where kids are graduating out of high school and they've never been asked to do it, right? So the ability to do it and the knowledge of doing it there could be a gap there too, right? You can say, well, we prepare our kids to be good writers, which clearly we do. Therefore, we can expect that they will be able to graduate and write a letter to a company or whatever. But having done it is very different. My son, I don't know if he sent it yet. I've just kind of read through the grapevine or heard he's writing a letter to Miss Canetta about cell phones. I haven't seen it yet. I have no idea where he's going to come up with how he's going to write it, but I will definitely find that interesting to see how he writes it. But I think I would love to see some sort of part of the curriculum before they graduate and at an age appropriate, 10th or 11th grade, when they're likely to potentially want to write a letter to a company, want to write a letter to the editor, want to do something. I just think it's a core skill that's overlooked, and it
Yeah.
could set up Weston as just, additional thing that we prepare our kids for before they graduate.
And we do a lot of different types of writing here at the high school, a lot of different things, even in history class. In the high school,
your screen.
in government class, they draft their own bills, right? Like that is a very high level skill. That is something that you have to research and focus. So we do a lot of different things, but we can get you like a bullet pointed list once Amy comes back, because she's going to have more of that institutional knowledge and more of that information, because these different types of writing are definitely taught in the schools.
So I was just going to add, we, David, for the first time in a long time, we offered a semester journalism class this year. So that's one place where, especially those op-ed pieces or editorial pieces that you're talking about, there's specific instruction to that for students who have an interest in journalism. I'm not going to be able to name the assignments off the top of my head, but I do know that there are components of a government class when we talk about like engagement with our representatives and senators. I know that there are also various writing or performance tasks, maybe on a small scale, maybe on a larger scale, where they are used to help students demonstrate not only their learning, but their proficiency in writing. So I know that it is woven. I don't have the specific assignments off the top of my head, and we can certainly kind of do a little bit of an audit to support that. You and I have talked about this as well. Like I, believe in the benefit of some business programming. And we know that that's a component of the financial literacy class. And we also know that in our counseling office, they are working with students to craft their resume. Sometimes that starts with like a brag sheet, and then how do we turn the brag sheet into a more formal kind of CV or resume so that they have those at their disposal, whether they're going on a college interview or they might be talking with a coach. I know sometimes when upperclassmen, sophomores and beyond start talking with coaches, they have some questions. So we want to prep kids with kind of their experiences, so they're at the ready to have those conversations about themselves. So I know that there are incremental steps that we take to prepare kids for that more personal writing and conversations about themselves.
Yes, it would be helpful if at some point we can bring those forward, because to Shauna's point, to your point, Megan, they could be woven into the curriculum, and it'd be nice to highlight when kids are exposed to that.
And just one thing to build on that, or maybe extend it in a slightly different direction. And first of all, thank you, Alex, Andrea, and Shauna for a great presentation. Very detailed, and it gives us a great overview. And I would love to be able to read more closely some of those examples. But to build a little bit on David, but go off in a slightly different direction, do we, as a district, are we ever able to gather our graduates' experience as they head into their post-secondary world? For instance, do we get feedback for how well prepared our kids feel in whatever the endeavor? One likely place, of course, is college. But how do they feel when they get to college in terms of preparation for writing? Is it a strength? Do they feel overwhelmed? Do they feel like they're on level with their peers? I'm not sure exactly how to get at that data. But it would be interesting to hear feedback from our graduates as they enter their post-secondary world, in terms of their foundational skills around writing. It looks like they should feel really well prepared, but it would be great to sort of have that validated, or at least get some sort of evidence around how they're feeling when they are asked, perhaps in college, to write in various courses in various situations. Thanks.
I can speak anecdotally because both of my kids are Weston High School graduates. And they felt that college writing was very easy for them. And my eldest daughter was actually recruited by her university to become a writing tutor for other college students because her skills were so strong. So she ended up spending a good 2 years as an architect student, tutoring students in writing at her university. So just a little anecdotal. I know it doesn't meet the need of what you're talking about, but that's just a little life example.
I'll just say anecdotally, Andrea, to add to that, we do have students return. They come in, they meet with their teachers. You know, many come back and want to just say hi and pop in. And we do hear that comparatively, they feel like they're well prepared, and that the expectations of the college writing do not come as a shock to them or surprise, and they feel like they are very well equipped. Sometimes versus their peers at the same institutions. But to your point, Debbie, I think that we now are collecting their students' personal emails, you know, as part of the College Board process and as part of our post-secondary survey process. So we'll look to see if there's a way that we could kind of survey students in terms of their preparedness.
Thank you, everyone. Unfortunately, we have a hard 10:30 stop today. We do have some interviews happening. And to everyone's point, the artifacts that we tried to capture on the screen today, we know that as they get older, it's harder and harder to take a true screenshot of the depth and magnitude of the writing pieces. So we did our best, but we also knew that on June 3rd, the academic year in review, we would actually have physical artifacts when we come together back in the middle school. So we hope that we can bring some of these artifacts in person and actually show you some of that progression as well.
Hey, Tina, to interject for just 1 second,
Sure.
I only ask the questions now, but we only had time to ask basically about business writing. I do have 2 burning questions on this topic. Can we bring
Sure.
this up again at some point?
Sure, absolutely. Chad, could you just ask your questions though, so that we can have them and maybe we can respond.
Why don't I just shoot them to you in an email, because I don't want to take any more time. You have to go to interviews.
No, it's okay. I have 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. One is essentially about the evidence that we have that the phonological and spelling and grammar is working. The reason I ask that is because I think our focus on voice and choice is exemplary, and I think getting kids committed and interested in writing is absolutely the first order of business. But historically, both in Weston, but also in the country, my concern is if our kids can spell and use grammar sufficiently. And so I'm curious about a deeper dive into that. It's not a critique of Weston. It's really a question about how we're teaching reading and writing these days. That's the first one. The second is really more of a recommendation about how we think about AI. Just as a tiny counterpoint, the idea that business writing is something that's going to be the most crucial thing. People are going to feed everything into ChatGPT when it comes to business letters, resumes, et cetera, in the future. And what we're really going to have to anchor our kids in is that writing is to train their brains and to train how to think. It's not that the robots can't do it better. They probably will be able to in many ways. It's to train them to think. So my question would be, how are we weaving in this Uber idea when it applies to our AI policy, which you mentioned earlier, to make sure it's not just about an ethical consideration of like, don't use ChatGPT because it's unethical, but rather learn to write, master writing, because it's one of the best ways to train your thinking and train your brain. And I would love to see how we're integrating that idea or not into our thoughts around AI and writing specifically.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because when we gather the feedback from our teachers around our vision and mission and the guiding principles for educators and students, we can probably touch on that too when we have that conversation, when we do our end of year presentations, because it also weaves into some of our technology and digital literacy goals that we've had as a district, that I'd love to involve Dan DeVito in that conversation too. So well taken, spot on. And I have marked down those questions for further time and clarification.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Okay. So I'm going to hand it back over to you, David.
Okay, so just real quick, just to recap, Tina, the meeting on the 3rd, that is open to the public,
Yep.
right? And matter of fact, we would invite members of the public to come. And what's the location? Is it where is it this year?
Weston Middle School in the library. We actually invite all the board members to come to that as well. But yes, all of our meetings, we welcome the public as well.
Okay. And is it possible we can send out a blast to the community just to remind them that we have this in person
Yeah.
on the 3rd?
Absolutely. Sure.
All right. Well, with that said, then, unless there's anything else to cover, can
I just want to thank Alex, Shana, and Andrea for a great presentation. Really helpful and informative.
Agreed. Thank you.
Thank you. I take for granted great presentations from you. Doesn't mean I shouldn't say thank you, but and of course Tina as well. Okay, so with that, then can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right.
And I'll second.
Thanks, everyone. See you on the
Thanks.
3rd.
Thank you.
Thank you.